The blinding stage lights, the roar of a sold-out crowd, a guitar solo that feels like it stops time. This is the world of Keith Urban. For millions, he's the ultimate country superstar, a charismatic showman married to a Hollywood icon, living a life that looks perfect from the outside. But even the brightest spotlights cast long, dark shadows. Behind the fame, Keith has been living a story of relentless tragedy, a quiet, decades-long battle for survival marked by pain and loss. Now, at 57, the sheer weight of these heartbreaks seems almost too much to bear. The recent devastating loss of his mother-in-law has plunged his family into deep grief, adding yet another layer of sorrow to a lifetime already full of it. This isn't just one tragedy, it's the latest chapter in a saga of personal demons, devastating losses, and the immense pressure of living in the public eye while hiding invisible wounds. The stage has always been both a sanctuary and a battlefield for Keith. So how has he managed to stand in the spotlight while his private world has been rocked by unimaginable loss? This is the story of how Keith Urban's deepest pain has fueled his most powerful music and how he's fighting to heal from a lifetime of heartbreak. To really get why Keith Urban's recent struggles cut so deep, you have to go back in time, far from the neon glow of Nashville. You have to go to Caboolture, Queensland, Australia, where a young boy's passion for music was born in a home that was both his biggest inspiration and the source of his deepest wounds. Keith's father, Robert Urban, was a man of contrasts. By day, he ran a local convenience store, but his soul belonged to the raw, honest storytelling of American country music. It was Robert who gave Keith his first guitar at age 6, and a Isa Osway love for legends like Johnny Cash and Glenn Campbell. He saw a spark in his son and believed it could take him all the way to America. Robert was the one who pushed Keith to perform, even making his son's stage outfits himself, because he believed in dressing the part. In Keith's own words, his dad was the catalyst for his entire life. But there was a darker side to it all. Robert Urban was an alcoholic. The home was often tense and filled with unspoken pain, an environment Keith later called dysfunctional. He remembered a childhood of isolation, learning to hide his emotions in the shadow of addiction. This experience planted seeds of pain that would haunt him for decades, setting the stage for his own battles to come. Despite the chaos at home, music was his escape. He perfected his craft in local bars, his unique blend of country and rock, guitar making him stand out. By the early 1990s, he knew he had to chase the dream his father had for him and moved to Nashville, Tennessee. But Nashville wasn't the triumphant arrival he'd imagined. In the early 90s, it was a tough town to crack, especially for an Australian outsider whose sound didn't fit the mold. Those first years were filled with rejection and a profound loneliness that took a heavy toll. It was then that the demons from his childhood resurfaced. To cope with the pain, Keith turned to alcohol and drugs. What started as a way to take the edge off in a party town quickly spiraled out of control. He later admitted that offstage he felt he had nothing to offer, and substances filled that void. He formed a band, The Ranch, and they fully embraced the rock and roll lifestyle. Keith often partied until dawn, using cocaine and drinking heavily to numb his insecurities. "If we were home for 5 days, I'd be fucked up most of the time," he later admitted. The dream his father had pushed him toward was now threatening to swallow him whole. By 1998, he hit a wall and checked into a treatment center in Nashville for cocaine addiction, the first of several attempts to get his life back. After getting clean, Keith slowly rebuilt his career. His incredible talent couldn't be ignored, and by the early 2000s, Nashville finally caught up to his sound. His solo albums took off, and hits like Somebody Like You made him a star. He was winning Grammys and was named CMA's Entertainer of the Year. It looked like a classic comeback story. But the foundation of his success was fragile, built on a sobriety that wasn't supported by a real recovery program. Then, in January 2005, everything changed. At a gala for Australians in entertainment, he met Hollywood superstar Nicole Kidman. For Keith, it was instant. "I swear to you." She glided across the room, floated, he later said. Nicole felt it too, developing a crush on him right away, but was confused when he didn't call for 4 months. Keith admitted he had her number in his pocket the whole time, but was too insecure to make the call, a telling sign of the self-doubt that still lingered. When he finally worked up the courage, their romance moved fast. For Nicole, divorced from Tom Cruise, it was a fresh start. She knew he was the one when he showed up on her doorstep at 5 a.m. on her 38th birthday with gardenias. They married in Sydney in June 2006 and bought a farm in Nashville, hoping for a quiet life away from the Hollywood chaos. It seemed like a fairy tale beginning. The troubled musician had found love and success, but this perfect picture was about to be shattered when the ghosts of Keith's past came roaring back. The first year of marriage can be tough, but for Keith and Nicole, that was a massive understatement. Just 4 months after their wedding, the idyllic life they were building was blown apart. Keith had been sober for years, but he admitted that his relationship with Nicole had become his sobriety. He wasn't in AA or any formal program. When Nicole had to travel for work, the old feelings of loneliness and fear crept back, and he relapsed. It wasn't a minor slip. It was a full-blown crisis. He later described a binge where he felt he couldn't stop. "I remember thinking, I'm probably not going to make it until tomorrow. And then I thought, I really don't care. It'll be a relief," he recounted, admitting he was almost happy at the thought of it being over. In that dark moment, Nicole Kidman proved her love was real. She immediately flew home, gathered a few close friends, and staged an intervention. It was an act of love in action, as Keith called it. He knew it was his last chance and willingly checked into the Betty Ford Center for 3 months. That moment could have destroyed their new marriage. Instead, it forged it in fire. Nicole stood by him, her support becoming the rock of his recovery. "I'm just so glad she didn't walk away," Keith said. With Nicole's help, he finally embraced true sobriety. They welcomed their daughters Sunday, Rose in 2008 and Faith Margaret in 2010. He was a loving husband, a devoted father, and a sober man who had stared into the abyss and chosen life. But fate wasn't done with him. Just as he found a new peace, tragedy struck the heart of his musical origins. In December 2015, his father, Robert Urban, died after a long battle with cancer. The loss was immense and complicated. This was the man who gave him music, but also a painful childhood. Just days before his death, Keith was at the Country Music Hall of Fame for an exhibit in his honor, featuring the very stage costumes his dad had made him. The timing was profoundly bittersweet. "This has all come at a very strange time," Keith told reporters, his voice heavy with emotion. At the funeral in Australia, Keith drove his father's beloved Lincoln Continental convertible, a final tribute to the man who started it all. He told mourners, "I am so deeply grateful that Dad is not suffering anymore." The loss of his father forced Keith to confront the complicated roots of his own pain. As if his personal history wasn't enough, the modern era brought new forms of torment. In 2023, Keith became the target of a malicious social media death hoax. False reports spread like wildfire, and for a family that had already endured so many real loss, the rumors were a cruel psychological attack. The turmoil wasn't just external. In early 2025, Keith made the difficult decision to part ways with longtime band members, including Jerry Flowers, who had been with him for 25 years. In a statement, Flowers confirmed that Keith had decided to make a lineup change. For a touring artist, their band is a second family, and fans were shocked by the shakeup, adding another layer of instability to a difficult period. All of this, the addiction, his father's death, the psychological toll of fame, was a prelude to the most recent blow. In late 2024, Nicole's mother, Janelle Ann Kidman, passed away. The loss sent the family into what Keith publicly described as a deep state of grief. Nicole, who was at the Venice Film Festival, left abruptly to be with her family, her heart broken. Keith, ever the supportive partner, later confirmed the family was getting through it together. But for Keith, this was another devastating loss in a life defined by them. At 57, he was once again navigating the treacherous waters of grief, compounded by every loss that came before. The question was no longer just about survival, but how to heal. For Keith Urban, the answer, as always, was in his music. In the quiet aftermath of tragedy, the real work of healing begins. For Keith Urban, that work has always involved 6 strings and a melody. Music isn't just his career, it's his lifeline. Facing the compounded grief of losing his father and now his mother-in-law, he's channeled his pain into his art more vulnerably than ever before. The most powerful example is Break the Chain, a song from his album High. On the surface, it's about ending generational pain, but it came from a moment of raw, unprocessed grief. During a songwriting session, lyrics about his father and his childhood just poured out of him. "I just burst out crying," Keith recalled, "just sitting on this couch, just weeping in this complete stranger's house." He realized that even though his father had been gone for years, the wounds were still there. He kept that raw, emotional, vocal take for the final record, choosing truth over perfection. This theme of confronting loss while cherishing the present runs through his work. Gone Tomorrow, Here Today, written after his father's death, isn't a somber ballad but an urgent anthem to live in the now. It's a song born from grief, but transformed into a reminder to seize the day. This healing process isn't a solo act. At the center of it all is his family. His marriage to Nicole Kidman, forged in the fire of his 2006 relapse, remains his greatest strength. He's often said his life truly began when he met her, and she has literally carried him through his darkest times. After the recent loss of Nicole's mother, they've leaned on each other more than ever. Being a father to their 2 daughters, Sunday and Faith, has also given him a powerful purpose and a reason to break the cycles of his past. He talks emotionally about the simple joys of being a dad, and in a rare public moment in 2025, his daughters appeared on stage with him on Father's Day. He's consciously building the stable, loving home he never had. In the wake of his recent losses, Keith has adopted a new philosophy of balance. He's acknowledged that grief comes in waves and prioritizes time with his family. It's not about forgetting the pain, but learning to live with it, to honor the memories of those he's lost by living a fuller, more present life. He has found peace not by conquering his demons, but by learning to live in harmony with his scars. Keith Urban's journey shows that music can be a powerful way to heal. We all have our own struggles and our own anthems that get us through. What song has helped you navigate a difficult time? Share your story in the comments below. At 57, Keith Urban has been redefined by tragedy, but not defeated by it. The energy is still there on stage, but now it's deepened by a vulnerability that only comes from a life of profound loss. His journey has been a relentless climb, from a chaotic childhood in Australia to global stardom, a path littered with addiction, sorrow, and the weight of fame. The recent death of his mother-in-law was the latest wave in an ocean of grief he's been navigating his whole life. Yet, through it all, he has found a way not just to survive, but to grow. He's shown that the deepest pain can become the most powerful art, and that love and family can be an unbreakable anchor in the stormiest seas. He's no longer just the guitar hero. He's a husband who has carried and been carried through unimaginable pain. He's a father determined to give his kids a better life. And he's an artist whose music speaks to the resilience of the human spirit. Keith Urban's story is heartbreaking, but it's also a powerful story of hope. It's a reminder that our scars don't have to define us, and that even after the most devastating losses, it's possible to find healing and a quiet strength that resonates more deeply than any power chord.